Brought to you by WikiVidi.com. 2017 NBA Draft. The 2017 NBA Draft was held on June 22, 2017 at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. National Basketball Association teams took turns selecting amateur U.S. college basketball players and other eligible players, including international players. The draft lottery took place during the playoffs on May 16, 2017. The 53-29 Boston Celtics, who were also the seed in the Eastern Conference and reached the Eastern Conference Finals at the time of the NBA draft lottery, won the pick with pick-swapping rights thanks to a previous trade with the Brooklyn Nets, who had the worst record the previous season. The Los Angeles Lakers, who had risked losing their 2017 first-round pick to the Philadelphia 76ers, moved up 2 spots to get the number 2 pick, while Philadelphia moved up to receive the number 3 pick due to the Sacramento Kings moving up in the draft, which activated pick-swapping rights the 76ers had from an earlier trade. On June 19, 4 days before the NBA draft began, the Celtics and 76ers traded their top first-round picks to each other, meaning the holders of the top 4 picks of this year's draft would be exactly the same as the previous year's draft. The draft class is the youngest draft class ever, with the most freshmen and fewest seniors selected in the first round. The top 7 picks in the draft were all college freshmen. It was the 3rd time, and the 2nd in a row, that 3 players were selected from Serbian team KK Megabasket in the same draft, with it previously occurring during the 2014 and 2016 NBA draft. The draft also received a lot of media coverage from ESPN pertaining to eventual number 2 pick Lonzo Ball and his outspoken father Lava Ball, much to the chagrin of many sports fans and even some ESPN employees. Notable undrafted players. These players were not selected in the 2017 NBA draft, but have played at least 1 game in the NBA. Eligibility and entrants. The draft is conducted under the eligibility rules established in the league's 2011 collective bargaining agreement with its players' union. The CBA that ended the 2011 lockout instituted no immediate changes to the draft, but called for a committee of owners and players to discuss future changes. The NBA has since expanded the draft combine to include players with remaining college eligibility. Early entrants. Players who are not automatically eligible had to declare their eligibility for the draft by notifying the NBA officers in writing no later than 60 days before the draft. For the 2017 draft, this date fell on April 23. After that date, early entry players were able to attend NBA pre-draft camps and individual team workouts to show off their skills and obtain feedback regarding their draft positions. Under the CBA, a player may withdraw his name from consideration from the draft at any time before the final declaration date, which is 10 days before the draft. Under current NCAA rules, players have until May 24 to withdraw from the draft and retain college eligibility. A player who has hired an agent forfeits his remaining college eligibility regardless of whether he is drafted. College underclassmen. A record-high 185 underclass draft prospects had declared themselves for eligibility at the April 24 deadline, although college players who had not hired agents or signed professional contracts outside the NBA were able to decide to return to college by May 24, 10 days after the end of the NBA draft combine. These players have publicly indicated that they have hired agents or had planned to do so around the start of the draft, those who hired agents immediately lost their eligibility to return to NCAA basketball in 2017-18. By the end of the May 24 deadline, 73 draft candidates from college decided to return to their respective colleges for at least another year, leaving 64 underclassmen to officially enter the draft this year. Additionally, 2 more players left entry at the end of the international player deadline, meaning both Maverick Rowan from North Carolina State and Darren Johnson from Cal State Northridge would not return for college, but one player managed to enter college underclassmen deadline, thus leaving 63 entries at hand for the NBA draft. International players. International players that had declared this year and did not previously declare in another prior year can also drop out of the draft about 10 days before the draft begins on June 12. Initially, there were 46 players who originally expressed interest entering the 2017 draft. At the end of the international deadline, 36 players wound up declining entry for the draft, leaving only 10 international players staying in the NBA draft. As a result, 73 total underclassmen entered the 2017 NBA draft. Combine. The invitation-only NBA Draft Combine was held in Chicago from May 9 to 14. The on-court element of the Combine took place on May 11 and 12. This year's event had Under Armour as its primary sponsor. A total of 67 players were invited for this year's NBA Draft Combine, with 5 more named as alternates in the event. Some players could not come for whatever reason. 10 invited players declined to attend for various reasons, including 3 players completely on the international scale. 18 more players that were guaranteed invitations were also players testing out their draft stocks during the event. 11 players participating in the event were seniors, the lowest number ever of combined participants who had exhausted their college eligibility. During the event, 6 different players were deemed injured either before or during this year's draft combine. At the end of the May 24 college deadline, 8 players who originally declared for the NBA draft and were invited to the draft combine this year, including potential none and done Kentucky freshman redshirt Hamidou Diallo, ultimately returned to college for at least one more season. Invited attendees. The NBA annually invites around 15-20 players to sit in the so-called green room, a special room set aside at the draft site for the invited players plus their families and agents. When their names are called, the player leaves the room and goes up on stage. Other players who are not invited are allowed to attend the ceremony. They sit in the stands with the fans and walk up on stage when they are drafted. 10 players were invited to the 2017 NBA draft on June 8, with 3 more of them being invited 2 days later. 7 more players would be invited to complete the green room listing on June 14, bringing the total invite list to 20. The following players were confirmed as invites for the event this year. Pre-draft trades. Prior to the day of the draft, the following trades were made and resulted in exchanges of draft picks between the teams. Brought to you by WikiVidi.com. Would you like to know